Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 12 for health and wellness, our last part of our financial well-being discussions and the concepts of financial well-being for our sixth unit, with our final unit on spiritual well-being being next week in week 13 and 14, and then maybe into week 15, but certainly weeks 15 and 16, our final 2 weeks will be kind of bringing everything together with all the different aspects of well-being into, obviously, ideas regarding total well-being and how to put that into practice beyond this class for future usage, both as a student and in life. That being said, a few more things to talk about financial well-being. First of all, before we even get into that, hope you're well, hope things are going well for you. It can be challenging. Certainly, standpoint of everything is kind of a little bit different nowadays, isn't it? Being that we're expected to be quarantined at home. And I hope that you're doing that for the safety of those that you care about most and for everyone's sake. The less contact you can have with people, the less probability there is for spreading the challenges we're all facing now. And hopefully we'll be out of it sooner so we can return back to some state of at least somewhat normalcy in the days to come, sooner rather than later, and more importantly, that people stay healthy, you specifically, and the people that you care about, not to mention everyone else, right? That being said, moving on to financial well-being and talking about the toolkit you kind of went through for last week, the takeaways from that Bureau of Consumer Finance toolkit on financial well-being. Some things that they brought up and were some really good things that they had to say were there's a need for everyone, it seems, to have control over day-to-day, month-to-month finances. That's not terribly surprising, is it? To be a little more control over what's happening, not just your money controlling you and you being able to dictate what you want to do with it, as opposed to it being dictated for you, right? The capacity to absorb a financial shock, which we talked about a little bit before too, that when you have some incredible cost come up, some damage done to your home, or someone gets sick and you have to take care of them, they don't have the insurance family-wise, and you want to be able to do that. Sometimes it's because you want to be able to help and you don't want to be in a situation where you can't help. Sometimes it's because it affects you directly and you don't want to be in a situation where you can't help yourself and have to hope somehow someone can help you out of it. You don't want to be in that situation. I think at some point in life, everyone goes through that, whether it's early around the high school, college type years, or it's later in life. And of course, the more we can avoid that later on in life, the better things are going to be for you. The ability to meet financial goals. If you don't have financial goals yet, it's not terribly surprising because it may not be something that's necessarily in your current state of need. If you are a student and if you have family or anyone who's actually paying for you, or you're on scholarship or something like that, whereby you do your work, which is school, and that is your work, and you basically, other than that, you don't worry about a whole lot. That being said, that of course changes, and not probably surprising to you. And of course, the more you have clarity in really specifically, not just general ideas of, oh, it'd be nice to make this much money and do these kinds of things, but the more specific it is, we've talked about this so many times before, the more specific your goals are, the things you want, the things you need, as well as the things that must happen, the more that is clear, the more likely it is that you're going to meet those needs, to get those wants, to get those musts, okay? The financial freedom to make the choices that allow you to enjoy life. Everybody's got their thing that they enjoy to do the most, or those things they like to do the most, or the people they like to spend time with, and maybe be able to may not have to worry about the costs that go along with that, because they will come up, and there will be times. Everyone has their limitations of what they can afford. It seems like some people don't, from a standpoint of how much some people have that are fortunate to have, and others that don't. But that being said, you want to make sure that you can enjoy your life, and that is really the key with financial well-being, and not just yours, but those you care about and those your family are taking care of. For me, certainly not just me, but my wife and my child, and hopefully future children, God willing. Got wood to knock on right there. All those kinds of things, and the ability to be able to take care of, for me, my parents and other family members, if needed, don't want to have to do that. Hope they never need it, but the ability to be able to do that is a big thing, and I think that's something that everyone goes through eventually. So that being said, though, those four concepts, control over day-to-day finances and month-to-month finances, is a capacity to absorb financial shock. That's really talking about security, right? And then, of course, freedom, the ability to meet your financial goals, and financial freedom to make the choices that allow you to enjoy life are the other part of that. So it's really about security and freedom of choice. That's what financial well-being really is, the ability to feel good about where you are and the opportunity to be able to do things you want to do. It pretty much defines really the ideal, I think, right there. That said, one thing that holds true in general, that the greater the confidence you have in the ability to achieve your financial goals, the greater the probability is to improving your financial behavior now and being successful in the long term, whatever that might be. One thing that's important from my perspective for you, if you're anything like me, that there are times when I almost wonder, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't make that much money. I don't know if I deserve to make that much money. I might take it from somebody else, something like that. When at the end of the day, you have to be able to be okay with you deserve to do well. And then once you do well, you therefore have the opportunity to do more to help more people. So there's a huge opportunity there. At the end of the day, you're going to have to make your own choices about what makes sense. But I hope you don't ever limit yourself with, I don't know if I deserve. That's a kind of limiting self-talk that can really, really affect your ability to grow, to get better, to be able to ultimately help other people. You don't want to be constantly thinking about that in that regard, other than you certainly do what you can to help others. If that is the constant state of mind that you have, it's because you need to be doing more in some ways, not necessarily financially, to maybe help other people, so you don't have those kinds of drawbacks or internal challenges that affect you making your day-to-day decisions and ultimately not being as happy and again, not be able to help people as much because of that, those debilitating thoughts or beliefs. Your financial skill. How you find, process, and use relevant information to keep yourself in an ideal financial standing. That leads to your financial behavior. This is actually related in that financial toolkit by the Bureau of Consumer Finance. Financial behavior, which is your day-to-day actions to secure your financial life, which creates your financial situation where you are. It's the objective facts of your financial life. You can have your own perception or your own interpretation of what that means for you, but numbers are numbers, and ultimately it comes down to that's what you have, this is what you need, this is what you spend. It's all there, right? Or at least it will be. And of course, that all leads to then eventually your financial well-being, your perceived financial security and freedom of choice, on top of the absolute aspect of value of money relative to what you can and cannot do with it, right? With financial well-being, my Bureau of Consumer Finance Toolkit on financial well-being experience, that was interesting. I scored myself because it's, self-reporting. You're answering according to what you believe, either very little or somewhat or significant, right? And my score was very low. It was actually the lowest of the scores. That's the way I perceived it. That's how I perceived where I was. It was interesting, though, when you looked at the descriptors for each of the different areas they referred to as very low or low, medium high, and high. I felt it should have been based on the descriptors they gave. I should have been more like medium low or even medium high, and maybe even a little bit higher than that in some situations, which kind of told me that maybe I'm better off than I think. That's not necessarily true, but I was harder on myself than the assessment in the way that it was given. When I put myself as very low and they had the descriptors of what constituted very low, I was going, that's not me. I'm not in that situation. It's very low from where I'd like to be, but not necessarily from an absolute perspective. And that's important to understand too. Like we said, your perception and the absolute aspects both have to be weighed. And of course, however, perception is a big part of well-being, or maybe it's denial. If you think you're better off than you are, it would appear from at least this particular evaluative method that I am better off than I feel I am. From the standpoint of maybe I'm harder on myself than I need to be, but that's also kind of my MO. It's something that's important for me to be able to be my own biggest critic so I can get myself in gear as needed. At least that's how I tend to see it when it comes to my own well-being. But certainly your perception is a big part of it, not just the absolute, but the perception as well. Now, that kind of turns it to you, which is kind of the big part of our final components to this week for financial well-being for our 6th unit here. What about you? Were your scores and total scores consistent, or total score consistent upon looking at the value descriptors, looking at the specific value descriptors they provide, defining where you are? And maybe you're like, well, money's not a thing for me right now because I'm a student. Everything is paid for. I hope that's the case for you. That's wonderful. It's fantastic. And if it's not, that you're able to get by and doing well with that. But just evaluate it as it is, right? As much as you can with that. And of course, with what you perceive your financial reality, was it consistent? Were your expectations on the way you answer those questions consistent with the evaluations and the way they described it in the descriptors? That's what my question is to you, kind of leading into what's going to be our discussion board for this final week. But if it's one thing that I hope you've learned, certainly that no one succeeds alone. This class, the challenge now, of course, is now that we are distance learning as opposed to in person, having a lot of great discussions and whatnot, because the reality of a live class is just not possible. It is currently 11 o'clock at night, or maybe a little after. Almost 11 o'clock at night, recording this video right now. The reality of the situation where I have with a 4-year-old, with my wife being full-time at home and working more busily than ever before, it seems. There's just no one, so it's me most of the day watching my child who doesn't nap. And it would be absolutely impossible to have a live class and discussion. It's regretful for me, but it is the reality of life. And like all things, we have to make do with the best of what we have and the opportunities we have and make the most of them, which really relies upon our ability, all of us, to have good discussions in the discussion boards. And I didn't get in there like I'd like to this last week, and that's my intention to be better about it this week. Always seeking to be better and to be improving every time, right? Some of you have been slipping a little bit with discussion boards. I don't want to see that. This is the ultimate, to me, descriptor of how well you're doing this class. Is not just those little quizzes and exams, but those discussion boards. Not just the ability to show you understand concepts, but a willingness to share concepts, to share ideas, to grow, and to be actually providing information and then interacting with other people is a constant importance for overall growth and well-being, not just financially in every aspect. But since no one succeeds alone, we're not just talking about you and God, you and Jesus Christ, you and your personal relationship with God, but you and other people. And I certainly believe that's an expectation that God has for us. We're not just here as a bunch of individuals trying to serve God's desires and God's needs and wants. We're supposed to be doing that for other people through God. And that's how we see God and serve God, by what we do for other people. That said, talking with others about your challenges and concerns is a big thing. A lot of people, and if you're anything like me, maybe you internalize more than you should and should share more than you do. And it doesn't mean you share everything with the same person. Maybe you do. Maybe it's just different people with different aspects in your life. So you have the opportunity to be able to get different perspectives and to learn, helping them with their problems and looking for opportunities. So when they're helping you, making sure you're saying, well, what about you? How are things going for you? And maybe pushing a little bit. If they were working really hard to help you with what you did, find out, make sure they're getting what they need. They may try very hard, if they're a person who cares much about you, to keep it on you, all the better. That's why you got to do your best to help them. Those are the people you want to help the most, right? The ones who refuse to be helped and want to help other people instead. Those are the people we want to be reaching out to help as much as we can. That said, when you do that, when you're helping others and you're seeking to grow and be with others, not just to serve what we feel God is setting out for us to do, but you not only fulfill God's expectations of serving one another, but you learn and grow from helping other people, sharing life's burdens. And there are a lot of burdens. There are a lot of fantastic, beautiful things, but there are a lot of burdens. And with finances, you're going to have some of both. I certainly hope a lot more of the positives, being able to do the things you want to do and having the security you need, the freedom of choice to be able to make anytime you need to be able to get the things that you want, let alone need. And that said, though, there'll be times when it won't be going quite so well. And you need to be able to talk to people about those kinds of things, because internalizing that stress does nothing but eat away at us slowly, the most insidious kind of stress, right? Do not hold back on sharing anything with at least someone. Well, I should say there's nothing you shouldn't be sharing with at least someone. There's got to be someone out there. Okay. And in this case, we're talking about finances, of course, but this pertains to everything. And it reminds you and us in general, all of us, that there is always more, a greater, deeper purpose, right? That brings us to our discussion board for this week. Based on the premises, this is great advice that was provided at the end of the Bureau of Consumer Finance Toolkit on financial well-being for ongoing expectations, beyond just filling out this questionnaire and the pursuit of I would like to call chronic financial well-being. Wouldn't that be nice? I'm chronically doing very well financially, thank you very much. How nice would that be? Maybe you're already there now, fantastic, hold on to it. You're not there right now, no worries, that's what we're looking to do, to make sure that we improve our state from where we are, we progress, right? Like exercise, like health and well-being, but also in our finances. Number one of three basic things that the article referred to was facilitating and having conversations, measuring well-being and progress, and of course evaluating and improving. Pretty standard type concepts, right? Well, your discussion board post, therefore, is going to be, it's fairly broad. There's a lot of questions here, but I want you to kind of tend to them in a general sense with all of them, because there's only so much you can write about each one of the different concepts here. But there's quite a few little basic questions here. After assessing your current state of financial well-being, which you've already done now, last week's discussion board post, now look, ongoing through the same toolkit or some other future exercise, how should you facilitate and have a conversation about finances? Meaning, how should you be seeking help? Through professionals, through friends, family, who specifically, why? I don't want you to say we should talk to friends. Okay, my friend John is great. This is a person I would talk to because. That's what I want you to be saying, showing that you have someone right now in that situation, and maybe talking to them in general who that might be differently down the road. If you're not married yet, maybe it's someone you marry eventually. Maybe it's not, but whoever it might be, right? How often should you have conversations? This is a very good thing to be thinking about in advance. How often should you be having conversations about your state of financial well-being, and or with those who share your finances? How often do you have those conversations that are important to have, and in what format? How do you do it? Where should you do it? Does it matter where you do it? Those things are important too. How often should you go back and reassess or retest or measure your financial well-being again? Why would it be that often? There's no exact time frame here, but I want to see your thoughts on this. Okay, I want you to relate what you think. How do you interpret changes in scoring, for better or for worse? What's that mean? Should you ask why changes did or did not occur? Was it because you didn't follow advice or because you did? Why did things turn out the way that they did? Okay. And then the final component of that, this is very generalized, right? But some good guiding type questions here about your experience here with looking deeper at how you use this and apply this down the road, these concepts, whether it's this exact questionnaire assessment or another one. But this was a good starting point, maybe one to consider using in the future till you find a better one. That's the way I always look at things. If you have something you can use right now and it's pretty good, if not great, maybe it's pretty good or good, keep using it till you find something better, as opposed to not using something to measure where you are. Because like we said so many times before, you can't really know where you're going if you don't first know where you are. Or more importantly, you really can't get where you want to go if you're first not aware of where you absolutely are right now. Okay. So how do you get better at your finances? That's a good question. Specifically, how do you get better at your finances? What can you do right now personally? And then what you're going to do with that, you can take the same toolkit that you now have. The PDF is still there. You can still pull it up there from the previous week's course assignments there, and print it out and give it to somebody else. Those few questions, score them, share your scores. This is whoever you do this with. You need to be able to share your scores with them. This is what you got for your scores. That experience of sharing with them is vital here. The willingness to do it, learning from it, sharing their experiences. How does sharing, going over theirs, make you feel, yours and theirs? Do you feel more powerful, more capable because you shared with them? Do you feel less? Does it feel difficult? Did it feel difficult? Why or why not? Can you improve this outlook, and how? Because we want to be able to do perfect world. Be in a situation here right now as we're going over these things long before you get yourself in a situation where you have significant debt, or you are not saving enough for retirement or for a little for just a rainy day, where you're getting enough just to meet your basic expenses, which is why I wanted you to basically break that down a little bit and talk about that with your last week's post. You want to be there in a good place before you get to a situation where you're not doing well. My freshman year of college, the very first semester, I remember there were people on campus and they were offering the opportunity to get a credit card, your first credit card. How exciting. And I got my first credit card with $1,000 limit, and I used that thing really fast. I went and got myself a nice stereo for my dorm room, which I loved. I got a lot of good use out of that thing for basically all through college. I had just a fantastic stereo component system that was basically about $1,000, right? That was back 30 years ago. So that's a pretty nice system, okay? And that basically, however, from that moment until another 13 years later, 14, 15, 16, 17 years later, before I was fully out of debt. Growth and debt occurred, some ebb and some flow, but never wasn't until basically that was 1989, 90, wasn't until 2008, 2009 So quite a while before I got out of that debt completely, where it's a race, no debt, zero debt, all gone completely. And of course, then it goes back and cycles again sometimes, and you get back situations where it comes back. I'm still saving for retirement and those things as well. But you have to be able to weigh those things. You have to be able to get yourself a situation whereby, perfect world, you don't let things get so far away that you either are stressed about them or it limits your ability to do the things you want to do. And that's what we want to avoid. We want to get the most out of life. Feeling secure, feeling freedom to do what you want to do, when you want to do it, how you want to do it. So use these questions as your guiding questions for the discussion board this week. I'll post some of this as well, but this should help you with that, and should be hopefully a fun experience sharing that with someone else and doing the same experience of the questionnaire that you did with them. And we'll talk to you again soon.